If you are not ready to work, hustle, kill, then please leave.
Come on, here we go!
Come on. Oh yeah, one more, please.
Welcome back to the Savage Excellence Podcast, everybody. I am your host, Tristan Nelson, and I'm here with my co-host,
Will Hardy.
Be advised, this podcast is not for everyone. We are both amateur hardcore bodybuilders, and that's who we try to cater towards, and just any other success-driven individuals. Our mission is to build a community of savages who relentlessly pursue their own personal excellence. We aim to provide education, value, and laughter and entertainment. Without further ado, let's get into it. Will, how the hell are you doing, my brother?
Pretty good, bro.
Yeah.
It's been a great start to the week so far.
Fuck yeah, man. Crushing goals, making progress, making moves.
Yeah.
I'm fucking ready to get after it, man. This is going to be a sick episode.
I'm excited. I'm excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, yes. We'll get into that one too. But today's episode is going to be about bodybuilding 101. We kind of aim to dive into training, nutrition, supplements, recovery, kind of the basics that you need to know in order to be a successful bodybuilder and see results long term. So first things first, I want to dive into is training. Mm-hmm. So first things that you really want to do when it comes to training is make sure you have some kind of consistency. Set schedule, I would say that you're prioritizing hitting muscles at least 1 to 2 times a week, with prioritizing muscle groups that you would consider maybe a weakness for you. So say, for example, if I'm training 4 days a week and I have a weakness of back, I would maybe do my upper body day starting with back and then maybe push at the end. And then you could have maybe an arm day that's also upper body, or maybe shoulders and arms if you wanted to do that. But you would always want to start with the muscle that's lacking. Yep. And then go into the one that doesn't need as much work.
Are you programming two days on or 3 days on first and 1 day off?
So it kind of depends on the athlete and what they need, what their schedule looks like. But for most of my athletes that are competitive bodybuilders, I try to have them aim for 4 to 5 days a week. Okay. Kind of depending where they are at in their phase too. I say push for 5 days a week is probably going to be the best results. Yep. But there's been many weeks I go 4 days training too, because if I just feel like my body genuinely needs it, I kind of have like more of like a mental checklist I go through. Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm sore as shit. My mind's not in it at all. I'm sore as fuck. You know what I mean? Just,
or you're sick.
Yeah, sick. You know, there's multiple things. It's not like I just wake up and I feel like, oh, I don't feel like training. Right. I got to listen to my body. You know what I mean? You know, have some common sense, like really evaluate yourself. That's going to come with time, like as an immaturity as an athlete.
Like if you're going to the gym, if you're considering like skipping out of the gym because you have a little sniffle, like again, like go train your ass off. But like if you're puking, obviously it's just kind of more common sense. Like just take a day off from the gym.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of a pussy when it comes to being sick and not going to the gym. But like, I mean, sometimes I'm not, but. Like I've actually been getting over a sickness myself right now, but it's really hard for me to stay out of the gym for more than 3 days. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like after that, I'm like, all right, we got to go.
Exactly.
But, so something else you can do too when it comes to prioritizing muscle groups is something like Will and I do right now within our training program is our lacking muscle group right now is lats. So we'll start off our chest days, maybe like chest and shoulders or something like that, with a lat movement. That's probably like unilateral or very good, just like isolated movement that we can get blood flow in there and just get extra work in that stimulus there over the course of the week. Yep. Same thing with like calves. A lot of people could do that. Just learning to prioritize the muscles for you that need to come up. Yep. Cool. Do you have anything you want to add with prioritizing muscle groups?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the most common lacking muscle groups that come to mind first off, like that people like no one does like do it is like Calves a big one, like you mentioned that. Rear delts is actually a big one too as well.
True.
That adds a lot of fullness to your delts there. And then yeah, just like a lot of the accessory stuff. I mean, like some of the other things I've noticed like too is like if you want big arms, like forearms are a muscle too. Like once in a while, I have like I'll just stop using straps on a back day, and I'll just kind of burn out on a little bit of forearms, and it kind of helps a little bit there too. But
dudes especially, make sure you are not neglecting glutes, your adductors, abductors, calves, hamstrings. Those were things I definitely neglected a lot in my beginning years. Because like you think about like, I'm a dude, I don't hit glutes, you know what I mean? Like,
right,
that's a chick exercise. But it's like,
exactly.
Then you lift over time, and then you just have like huge quads, but then nothing on the back end. Yeah. Which is what I'm kind of trying to fix myself.
Exactly. Adductors help with that too.
Yeah, giving the legs the width for sure, filling in those gaps.
Yep. You want to dive into, I guess the different kind of muscle, like the exercises, like the different types of exercises, like isolation movements versus compound. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can start workouts with like a machine, for sure, especially if they're like a stronger movement for you. But a lot of times, I'd say people benefit from starting with some kind of isolation in the beginning, just to establish that neurological connection, get blood flow in there, and then kind of helps warm up the joints so that you can move into a compound movement a lot more smoothly. I usually always start my leg days first with some kind of isolation movement, especially because you're going to be pushing a lot more weight.
Especially if I'm doing quads, I'm doing a lot of...
back too.
So like if I'm starting off a leg day, like I really like pre-exhaustion quads with leg extensions. That's a great one to get blood flow in your legs, just because quads is another one where it's like a lot of people have problems with their knees. And if they're not having enough consistent blood flow right away in the workout, and you just jump into a huge set of hack squats, like that's exactly.
I'd say upper body you can be a little bit more lenient with like chest or shoulders, just because you're not going to be pushing quite as like ridiculous amount of weights, and machines you can like just lock in with those a lot more. Like a lot of times in my shoulder days, I'll start just like with machine shoulder press because I just feel like I connect with them really well. Just also making sure like you're doing the proper warm up. You just really want to minimize that injury for risk. But difference in general between a compound and isolation is an isolation movement just isolates that one particular muscle, so you get more precise stimulus doing it that way, usually less risk for injury. Whereas a compound movement, it's going to require multiple different muscle groups to perform. You can also push more load. You're going to get more like mechanical stimulus, which is going to have its own benefits in and of itself. Because you want to build the strength necessary for it too. I always kind of look at it as like isolation movements. I kind of look as kind of like we talked about detail. And then compound movements are going to be more of like adding mass, getting dense muscle. I always kind of look at it as compound movement. Like if I look at my physique as a statue, compound movements are adding stone to my statue. Isolation movements are me essentially like chipping away that stone, giving it detail to that statue.
I think another misconception for a lot of beginners, if you guys are watching this, like, they hear the basic difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding in the gym is like, oh, like bodybuilders, they don't lift a lot of weight. And in reality, like if you actually do want to gain a lot of size, there's no kind of just, rep until it kind of burns type of deal, like with a lot of muscle groups. Like those compound movements really do matter, guys. So again, just kind of stressing on that. But moving on, what do you want to talk about next?
Let's talk about stimulus to fatigue ratios.
Okay.
That's definitely something I still definitely struggle with because I don't know. It kind of depends on the athlete with a lot of these different things. But if you're earlier in your years, I would say you want to have a happy medium. It's kind of like a bell curve. You want to get a good bang for your buck. You don't want to be doing drop sets like every single exercise. You know what I mean? Especially like natural, because your recovery capacity is going to be a lot lower. So I'd say stick to like straight sets. I honestly, for a lot of beginners, I try to give them as little complexity as possible. So like when I started when I was young was like 3 sets of 8 to 10, 4 sets of 10 to 12, which you kind of see like demonized nowadays, where it's like junk volume. You know what I mean? But like to such a newbie, if you just tell them like, hey, go hard on 2 sets, I just feel like they're not going to be getting what they need to be getting.
Yep.
Because they don't have that years of development in their mindset of their intensity to push those sets where they need to be.
Yep.
So I'd say if you're more of a beginner in bodybuilding, I would start with something like that. 4 sets, 10, 12, 3 sets of 8 to 10, something like that.
Yep.
Is a really good place to start. But then as you progress, then look at maybe cutting out that junk volume.
Yeah.
Start using warm-up sets and then top sets to your advantage.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna add. This can kind of be more of a general around thing with the whole bodybuilding, and all the different categories we'll go through today. But the big thing is like the more beginner you are, the more it's just gonna be focusing on like the macro ideas of these things we're diving into. So like he said, I think 2 sets of, 2 failure sets to a beginner is not going to be what they might need. I think just starting out with like just getting the basics under control, like how does this movement work? Am I doing it properly? Like,
A lot of beginners don't even know what failure is.
Exactly. Well, right, and that's the other thing too. It's like if you hear the word failure come around, you're like, well, what does that mean? Is it, does that mean like I need to fail at this exercise? Like, what I mean? Like, but moving on.
So let's say you are. I do like incorporating intensity techniques for them though, because especially for those beginners, what I really want to get out of them is them to develop the intensity, because a lot of them they don't know how to train to failure. Yep. So you're gonna have to give them different strategies or techniques to get that same kind of intensity stimulus to grow muscle. They're not gonna have like a super crazy high stimulus threshold to get progress. Because in that beginner, if they go in there with a structured plan, they're going to gain muscle.
Yep.
But if you really want to capitalize on that period, which I think you should, you want to create that stimulus consistently, which I really like drop sets. So for a beginner, I would maybe do the 4 sets 10 to 12, 3 sets 8 to 10, but then drop sets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of them just
now, how many drop sets would you recommend a beginner start with, throughout the workout?
Depends on what phase they're in, which is another thing we kind of want to talk about.
Yep.
Is someone's going to be either in a maintenance phase where they're trying to just maintain their weight and improve composition, and then either transition into a caloric deficit or surplus. So I would say the more of a caloric surplus you're in, the more drop sets and intensifiers you can get away with.
Yep.
But without overloading them, obviously. But at the same time, you could use them in a caloric deficit to help drive more fat loss if you wanted to. I would say always use the most of them in a caloric surplus because you have the caloric intake for the recovery.
Yep.
But in a caloric deficit, have them there but not as much as a surplus.
Yep.
And then make your main drivers for fat loss through cardio or your food.
Right. Yep.
So
getting into do you want to talk about we'll get into a gaining phase. So typically with a gaining phase, these are going to be anywhere between 20 and 40 weeks long, approximately, if you were to guess as well.
Depends if you're enhanced or not, but
true. But yeah, in general, the programming structure around this, like you said before, we're going to be pushing a little bit more volume, just because your body's going to be in a caloric surplus, and it's going to allow for more stimulus and more recovery.
Yeah. I think a big thing too is with athletes, whenever they have more food, they are going to feel stronger. They're going to have more energy, which typically, especially for dudes, that are more ego-driven biologically, when they have that extra caloric intake, they will sometimes use that as let's just go super fucking heavy all the time.
Yep.
So it's good to have extra volume in there, so it kind of negates them trying to load up for a crazy heavy 6 to 8 reps and then potentially injuring themselves. Yeah. So good, more volume in the growth phase, I agree. Because you have the food there for the recovery capacity, and then also just psychologically for the athlete too.
One thing I would also say too, when it comes to a lot more beginners, maybe going through their first growth phase as well. When we're doing, obviously we're trying to focus on both stimulus and progressive overload on this. So, I would say first couple sets are going to be where you can push the most amount of weight. And then there are back off sets where you want to be pushing a little bit less weight, but focus more on the reps because, like you said before, you're gonna have more food in your system to be able to recover from that so-called extra volume there. But yeah, I'd say first couple sets are definitely the most when you're in your prime for pushing the most amount of weight.
Yeah, and then to the opposite of that, if you are in a more like maintenance phase where you don't have as much food coming in, that's when I would maybe keep the reps lower.
Yep.
Because again, psychologically, with less food, you think you can maybe do less weight or less reps. So I would say it's good to have a bit less reps where you would go for more weight so that you can keep that muscle tissue that you just worked for, and psychologically you're not trying to like go easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I kind of want to cover some basic terminology within training too. So like when we start to talk more and more about this, they actually kind of like know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's main terms that we should talk about and cover, like frequency, volume, intensifiers, like what those kind of are. Just splits in general. So for volume, it's pretty much how much you're going to be doing in terms of reps over the course load. I usually go by like a week.
Yep.
And then frequency is going to be how often you're training that particular muscle group, again, over a week.
Yep.
So if you were training chest twice a week, your frequency would be twice a week.
Yep.
If you did 4 sets with 4 exercises, that would be like your volume there. So like you would times how many like reps you did in those 4 sets for each different 4 exercises, add that up, and then that would be your volume for that workout.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to different splits, I think the most basic splits that kind of come to mind, right, are like the classic push-pull legs.
Yeah.
And you're repeating that twice in a week. It's a 6-day split. Obviously, a little bit less time for recovery, but it's great for beginners because obviously, like, that's where they're starting to kind of figure out more in the gym. It's what I started off for the first 2 years of my progress, and I started learning a little bit more about failure, and I realized, like, okay, like I don't need as many training days if I'm pushing, you know, harder and harder and harder over every workout.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a beginner, like a great split is going to be the push-pull legs. Again, what that basically is just like a chest day with some triceps and some shoulders. A pull day, which would be a back and a biceps kind of day. Maybe mix a little bit of shoulders in there as well. And then you're going to do a full leg day. And then just repeat that, the same process over twice a week.
Yeah, another split I really like for beginners that will start with me is like an upper rest, lower rest, upper rest, lower rest. So it's pretty much they train, then rest, and then they rest, which I really feel like for beginners, 4 is like the magic number.
Yeah.
4 meals, 4 training sessions goes a long way.
Yep.
That way it gives them time too for maybe that extra day for meal prep.
Yep.
Or just time for themselves or recovery,
Yep.
you know, whatever.
Yep.
But go ahead.
Which I was going to ask what your opinion on the bro split or the Arnold split is. Do you think those are pretty good beginner?
Run me through the Arnold split. I don't know if I've heard of that one.
So that's a chest and back
Okay.
focus, and then they have an arm day, I think a leg day, and then I think there's one more in there. Again, I don't know too much about it. I did the Arnold split for like I think a couple months. I didn't really love the whole back and chest thing, just because I noticed I got way too much forearm activation and way too much, just like blowed my arms, and it was like, what's the point of doing this? It's you're doing 2 isolated movements that require your arms. That's why I believe a little bit more in like a bro split. So like that's a chest, a back day, and then it's like an arm day and then a leg day, and then you're kind of adding in arms kind of throughout the rest of the week there as well. And that's a great one because that's a 4-day split, 4 to 5 days depending on who you may talk to. But it's a very good isolation split for people trying to bring up certain body parts. I would definitely say push-pull legs is probably the most beginner you can get. And then maybe like that other 4-day split, the upper lower you were saying. And then the bro split might be kind of maybe a little bit more on the intermediate side.
Yeah, I could agree with that. It's funny because beginners, they're always the ones that are in the gym like 6 days a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they're really going to benefit for probably whatever they're doing except for that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because that's what I was doing, was training like fucking almost every single day of the week.
Yeah.
And I just needed to recover more.
Yeah. And that's just kind of something kind of realize, like, as when you kind of start to like get past that newbie gain stage, you're like, wait, I need to start doing these more of these modalities, like, you know, taking more time to rest, and then taking more time to realize, like, okay, like I need to adjust my training schedule to be doing more intense sets.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of new beginners to bodybuilding don't really realize that, well, they just all think that more work equals more results, which, like, to a degree, yes, but not necessarily in the gym. Because when you're in the gym, that's when you're destroying muscle. When you're resting is when you're growing the muscle.
Right.
So you want to get the best stimulus you can, but then you want to train hard but recover better.
Right.
So I think the best training split in my eyes is kind of like the back biceps, chest, triceps, delts and arms, and then maybe 2 leg days, with one leg day being like a heavier leg day with more volume, and then the other one being with maybe less volume, but no squatting patterns at all. Mainly just like leg press or machine kind of stuff. So you're getting like less fatigue from that leg day. Yep. So it's kind of like 1.5 leg days, you could say.
Yeah, I like that. I think that kind of covers most of that for training. Do you have any more kind of final thoughts on training?
I really like people to know about training techniques for intensity. So there's a lot you can go over. So if you kind of are dipping your toes more into that intermediate to advanced stage, you're going to want to start incorporating different intensity techniques to continue driving progress. And there's quite a few you could go over. You can do drop sets, you can do back off sets, you can do myo reps, you can do static holds, you can do, I can't list them, think of all of them right now, but there's like so many that you can do. Supersets too, giant sets. Really, any of them, like, you don't want to go overboard with these, but I would say sprinkling them in here and there between days is going to really help drive that intensity and continue progressive overload. So what are some of your favorite intensity techniques that you incorporate?
I really like drop sets. Again, partials are something that we've been doing together for a long time. I've done it for the last 2 or 3 years now. Yeah. It's a great way to kind of finish off a set. Assisted reps are a great one as well, because that way you're not just kind of forcing the weight. You're actually still being able to activate the muscle without doing it necessarily a drop set, and being able to connect to the muscle, like, even after you feel like your muscle can't pull the full amount of weight down. And then rest pause sets, I've done a couple of those once in a while as well. Those are pretty good sets. I think that's about it as far as the intensity techniques I do. I definitely think, actually, I'll add on to this, having a training partner, especially if you're in that intermediate level to advanced level, because as a beginner, let's be honest, you're going to put on so much muscle just by getting in the gym. Like we said, that's kind of going to be our main kind of coming back theme, is like the beginners are going to be able to put on the most muscle and get away with the most stuff. Sure, if you want to, we're going to give some, tips for the beginners so you can get the most out of, your newbie gains. But like I was saying, like, if you're an intermediate lifter, an advanced lifter, having a training partner is going to be a game changer, just because you're going to be able to push each other to the next level. And it's cool because, like, it's like you get to see each other progressing, and that brotherhood's pretty sick.
Yeah. The hard thing with drop sets, doing them too much, is that they do generate a lot of fatigue. So I think a really good intensifier techniques beginners can incorporate right away that aren't going to generate a shit ton of fatigue but still help drive a larger stimulus is going to be forced reps. Like if they're with a partner, or even if they get a spotter, just helping them push through past that failure point of what you could do on your own, and then really taking that last eccentric slow as possible. So, like, for example, if I'm doing hack squats and Will's spotting me, like, if I can't get it up on my own anymore, he's going to help assist me get that hack squat all the way up to the top. I'll control the eccentric down. He helps me get to the top, because a lot of people, they have so much energy that they can get through for the concentric, which is essentially you just contracting the movement, contracting your muscle. The eccentric is you lengthening the muscle. You're going to be much stronger in the eccentric position. So something like a hack squat, and you can't get yourself to the top, that can be frustrating. And a big advantage of having a spotter or a training partner is that they can help you get those extra reps, where they can help get you up, but you control the eccentric, so you can push that set so much further that way.
Stimulate more hypertrophy.
Yep. But then that last rep is what's really important in my eyes. It's like when you get to the top and you're like, yeah, there's no way in hell I'm getting another rep after this.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and just really take like 10 seconds to lower the weight down to the bottom.
Yep.
And really just milk everything you can, wring that tallow out for what you can get out of that muscle.
Yep.
That's
a great technique. Definitely I can see myself doing that. I've done it for a long time for a lot of different movements, especially with legs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You notice a tremendous amount of leg development just through that one movement, or just through that one intensity technique.
Yeah, I think too of like holding a contraction, like an isometric hold.
Yep.
Where like that's going to be a better one on isolation movements.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing like leg extensions and you're getting towards the end, just contracting the weight all the way up and just holding that squeeze, that's going to be a really great way to drive more stimulus. And then once you can't hold it anymore, you basically just fight while your muscle slowly kind of just fails on you. And again, just really taking that 10-second eccentric to the bottom, and then maybe going for like 5 partials after that. And then like now that's failure. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see, is there anything else you really want to cover in the training aspect?
No, let's move on to nutrition.
Okay. So yeah, we can kind of dive into, again, like we're going to be talking about the different stages that you're going to be in. So like if you're in a surplus, obviously you're going to be eating a lot more food.
Before we get too much into that, let's talk about like super bare bone basics.
Okay.
Like macros.
Okay.
So whenever you're eating, there's 3 different types of macros you need to know, which is protein, carbs, and fats.
Yep.
So every single gram of protein is 4 calories. Every single gram of carbs is 4 calories, and every gram of fats is 9 calories. Mm-hmm. So everything that you eat, every single ingredient is going to have macros. Mm-hmm. So say if you take some chicken breast, like 100 grams or something like that, in that 100 grams, there's going to be a certain amount of carbs, which is probably going to be like 0 grams. Some fats, which is probably going to be like, I don't know.
1 or 2 grams.
Yeah, something like that. And then like 30 grams protein or so, something like that. I don't know. Rough numbers here. But you would then times each one of those numbers by its corresponding unit by like 4 for the protein, 4 for the carb, and then 9 by the fat. Mm-hmm. And then that would give you how many calories is in that certain amount of grams of chicken. Yep. So that's how you can pretty much add that all up between your meals and in total for the day to see what your total caloric intake is and what your macro breakdown profile is for protein, carbs, and fats. Yeah. Your protein you want to aim to be about minimum 1 pound per body weight. Mm-hmm. But I would say males, like they should really shoot for 1.5 is what I like to be relatively aggressive with protein. Yep. And then, women too, honestly, you can get away with, but I'd say having that minimum of like 1.25 times their body weight is going to be a really good starting point of protein. Yep. So like whenever I make someone's program, I always kind of like reverse engineer it. Yep. So instead of like trying to calculate each meal perfectly, I'll find their maintenance calories first, which is basically like their total energy expenditure, which is a super easy way to do that. Is just take your body weight, times it by 10. That'll give you your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, how many calories you're going to be burning by just existing based on like your height, weight, age, etc. Yep. And then you want to times that number by your activity level. So if you're like sedentary, it's going to be like minimum 1.3. If you're like super active, you get up to like 2.5 or so. So then you would times that weight. Say if you got like an office job where you're just sitting all day, times that by 1.3, that'll give you a rough estimate of your maintenance calories. Yep. So then from there, if you add in more calories based on those macros, how much of a caloric surplus you're in, or the opposite of how much of a caloric deficit you're in. Right. Which is super, super important to know because a lot of people are just guessing. Yeah. Like I talked to so many people and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be pulling this out of my diet and hopefully I'm in a deficit. It's like, well, no shit, you're not losing weight or you're losing muscle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
and then they do the actual, and then they calculate everything else. Like, wait, dude, I'm eating 2,000 calories more than I say I am. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So having that structure there is going to be super important.
I was going to actually bring up, briefly, there are certain apps out there that help it, be able to track that kind of stuff pretty easily. MyFitnessPal is a great one.
Kahuna's
Chronometer, super simple, basic, or I think it's super simple, or stupid simple macro tracker is actually an app you can get on your iPhone That one
they'll do all the math for you.
And I'll do all the math for you as far as the thing. Just make it to grams. That's because most of us measure in grams.
Make sure you get ingredients that are how you're going to be weighing it. So if you're calculating out chicken, make sure it's cooked chicken in the app. Not like raw potato. You want to do cooked or like baked is usually what I go with.
Yep.
That way you're not potentially getting in some kind of like oils or anything like that. Look for like verified ingredients.
Yep.
Because sometimes there's ones in there that don't. They're basically just uploaded information from other users.
Yep.
So it can be kind of incorrect data.
Yep.
So try to go by ones that are verified.
Yep.
Yeah, this is good stuff here. So now say we're going into like a caloric surplus or deficit, whatever. Basically, how you'd want to do it, how I reverse engineer it anyway, is first say we're going to be, caloric surplus. And this person weighs 100 pounds. So then you would times that by, like 1.5 or so. Yep. And that'd get you your protein number for grams in your macros. So then I would just times that by 4, see how many calories that is, and deduct that from basically like my maintenance or what, like how much of a caloric surplus I'm going for. And then from there, I kind of have to see, all right, say if I'm going to be in a 3,000 calorie maintenance and I need 250 grams for 1.5 times my body weight, that's going to get me my grams of protein. I'm going to times that by 4 and deduct those calories from that 3,000 maintenance. So I know how much calories I have left to dedicate to carbs or fats.
Yep.
So for men, they're going to be utilizing a little bit more carbs. And for women, they're going to want to utilize a little bit more fats just because they need more of those fats to support their hormones than men do. And men need more of those carbohydrates to drive progress a little bit more than women do.
Yep.
So I usually aim for like at least like 30 to 40% carbs or so, I would say. So say if I'm going for like 3,000 calorie maintenance and got 250 grams protein, maybe I'm going to try to go for like 300 grams of carbs and then maybe 60 to 70 grams of fat for a meal.
Yep.
Whereas for a woman, maybe I'm going to try to get them in like 70, 80 grams of fat, maybe like 2 to 250 grams of carb, something like that.
Right.
You just want to preference it more to that biology.
Yeah. And obviously, like, in the off season, and when you're in a gaining phase, you're going to be wanting to uptake more carbs just to drive more energy. But that doesn't mean start your carbs out at 600 grams per day.
Yeah.
That means, starting at a lower amount so you can kind of assess, how you're growing. You don't want to be spiking your insulin levels up super high just so you can stay insulin sensitive, be able to get the most out of your off season.
Yeah, I'd recommend having at least one meal a day that's like pretty low to almost no carb.
Yeah.
If you can. Just so it gives that time for your body to get like a really good time duration between some meals for gastric emptying.
Yep.
Just gut health in general.
Is there a certain time of day that you're programming that meal in?
I'd say if they're like on a 4-meal basis, it'd probably be like the 3rd meal. Okay. That way they're getting plenty of carbohydrates in the morning, sometime in the evening, before workouts, and then they're going to bed with some good carbohydrates. Yep. I think that's really the best spot. Excuse me. You can do it on a kind of like how we do it right now on our diets. We just kind of have like a baseline we follow every day. Or you could follow a training day diet that's all meals that have carbs, and then a rest day where it's just like that 3rd meal that doesn't have carbs, but the other carbohydrates in those meals are like reduced. Yep. You know what I mean? You can do it a couple different ways. Yeah. But making sure that you're getting plenty of different sources of different food groups. Yeah. So like fruits, vegetables, carbs.
Yeah. Not just the basic chicken and rice. Yeah. You're having that kind of stuff, you're not you're not gonna have the right amount of macronutrients. Right. Especially if you're natural, because that's one thing you have to focus more on when it comes to like hormone levels is and maintaining hormone levels is making sure that macronutrients is high. Or not the macronutrients, but the micronutrients. Making sure fiber is at an adequate amount.
Yeah, it's pretty good, like 2-to-1 ratio. I usually shoot for. I usually like to say have at least one meal of beef a day, and then 2 meals of like a white meat, chicken, fish, shrimp, whatever. maybe like 1 meal of a protein powder.
Yep.
And then morning meal, I always try to shoot for something with eggs.
Yeah.
I think eggs are really like the best food you can have in the morning.
Yep.
Complex versus simple carbohydrates. You're going to want to keep your simple carbohydrates around your training as much as possible. So like your pre and post workout meal should both consist of some kind of simple carbohydrate, which a simple carbohydrate is something that just digests extremely easily. Something like rice, cream of rice, fruits, fruit juices, anything like that, Gatorade powder. Complex carbohydrates going to be more like oatmeal, potatoes, things like that are going to have more of those micronutrients, a bit more fiber, take a bit longer to break down. Have those, I would recommend, like in your first morning meal and then your last meal. Yeah. But what are some of like your favorite meals that you have pre and post workout?
Yeah, I mean, a great one for a pre-workout or post-workout as well. You know, the base, you know, the good old protein and cereal pack. That's a great one. So basically how that one is put together is it's just protein powder, like a protein shake basically as your milk, quote unquote, for the cereal. And then I'm usually having some sort of fruit or vegetable with that to drive macronutrients. Again, helps with digestion. And then I mix in some fats around pre-workout. I wouldn't say go overload on the fats pre or post workout, just because that's going to limit your nutrient absorption, just because fats slow down digestion. But yeah, I like that. I like the cereal, like the protein cereal, and then cream of rice. Again, you can mix it with pretty much anything. Yeah, as far as like fruits, blueberries and cream of rice go well together. Strawberries, cream of rice, pineapple, cream of rice. Adding some things like cinnamon on there helps with insulin sensitivity. And then, there's so many different things like sweetener, like artificial or natural sweeteners you can add. Honey's a great one. Maple syrup. That's kind of my go-to like 2 meals that I really like pre and post workout. Again, you can keep it simple. You could do chicken and rice. Yeah, that's what I do. I think my favorite pre-workout meal is chicken, rice, banana, honey, and some coconut oil. And just think too, like just because fats slow down digestion, that's not necessarily like a bad thing. Yeah, no. It's almost like a necessity for me to have fats in my pre-workout meal because I do have a super high like metabolic rate where I just digest food like fucking instantly. Yeah. So like literally after 60 minutes after a pre-workout meal, I'm literally hungry and it takes away from my workout because I'm just thinking about how I'm hungry. Yeah. So like I talked to like Nick, I'm coming out of a maintenance phase right now, health phase, trying to work my way up into a surplus. And I'm like, yo, dude, if you're looking at bringing in any kind of food, please make it fats in my pre-workout meal. Yeah. Because it helps slow that digestion down to where I get more of like a streamlined release of that glucose of the food I'm eating. Yep. And it helps my workouts like day and night. Yeah. So especially as you get more and more more further into gym progression and your workouts get longer. Right. Yeah, definitely, and more brutal. So I think, chicken, rice, honey, banana, and some salt. Really making sure you salt your meals is going to be super important. And then post-workout meal, I do the same: cereal, protein, some milk, and then some kind of fruit. I kind of make like 2 meals out of 1 with mine. Oh, really? Yeah, so I'll do my Cinnamon Toast Crunch because that's the best cereal on the fucking planet. I'll debate that all day. And I do Cinnamon Toast Crunch protein powder by Dymatize. Oh, that's the way to go, yeah. Perfect combo. Plus they're like a really great brand, digests and breaks down like in the actual shaker bottle super easily, like it mixes really well. Oh, nice, yeah. And it's a hydrolyzed whey protein, so it's pretty much the cleanest form you can get. Yep. And it tastes great. Yeah. So I'll kind of do this though, is I have 70 grams protein powder to work with. See, this is the big thing too, that people, I feel like, really fail with their like long-term consistency to their meal plan. So they don't know how to get like creative with their foods. Yeah. You guys, like, if you maybe just do some research on different ways to cook things, get different tools. Like there's so many videos out there. I mean, you go on social media, you can look up, best, bulking meals. Like it's going to give you 100,000 results. Like there's so many people that put results on this stuff. There's so much resources out there. One One thing I would say that's essential in the household to have for sure is a blender.
I just realized your mic's not on.
No, it's on.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, we're good.
I didn't see it on the other side.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for my post-workout meal, I will do my 80 grams of cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then I'll take my shaker bottle, fill it up with my 240 grams almond milk, unsweetened.
Yep.
And then I'll add in 30 grams protein powder to it of my 70, and then add some extra water for just volume of the liquid.
Yep.
Shake it up, and I'll use like half of that towards my cereal. But then I'll get a blender like NutriBullet, something like that.
Okay.
And then I'll add in my blueberries, the rest of my protein, and then some ice, and then fill it up with the rest of my like milk, water, protein, and just blend that up. So now I got cereal and a smoothie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about meal timing. I think that's going to be important for a lot of people as well. I usually kind of go by. I work really well with about 3 hours. I would say in between meals.
It's 2.5, 3 hours.
2.5, 3 hours. I'd say no more than 4.
Yeah.
Kind of depends how many meals you have programmed in a day too. You could probably get away with that 4 mark if you only have like 4 meals in a day.
Yep.
I say if you're trying to go for like adding muscle mass, you should be eating no less than 4 meals a day.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I kind of like that cadence. I think you need to allow yourself enough time in between meals to actually have that gastric emptying and digestion, peristalsis happen within your actual digestive system. Otherwise, if you just keep like cramming food on top of top, like it's just going to be getting backed up.
Yeah.
And just take forever to digest, which you obviously just don't want that, because then the food's just going to be sitting in there accumulating bad bacteria, which is going to maybe cause you digestive issues, constipation, whatever. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I did a whole gut cleanse over last summer. GI map.
Yeah.
It was like this huge, just like 4-month gut cleanse. And I definitely noticed like it helped digestion like immensely during going into this off season. And like some of the things I learned from that stuff, like, especially when you're eating more calories, like, meal timing and spacing that stuff out, so that like the same points that you said, like not having to worry about, that bad bacteria, building up, because that was what my issue was, is I had too much bad bacteria in my gut, which was causing a lot of inflammation and a lot of digestive issues. And, the gut's one of the actually most overlooked parts of bodybuilding.
For sure.
If you're not digesting food right, like you're not getting muscle.
Yeah, it's largely looked at it as like the second brain.
Yeah.
In the body. So many of your hormones are actually produced in your gut.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't realize, which is why I feel like a lot of people struggle with a lot of like mental disorders.
Yeah.
Because they just look at the quality of the food that they're eating, constant alcohol poisoning. Like they're just fucking destroying their gut. Right. Which is then in turn destroying your hormones. Yep. Which can be playing into a lot of like depression, anxiety, things like that.
And that's kind of what I'll touch base on a little bit more too, is like the whole foods stuff, like implementing whole foods rather than as many processed foods. Like obviously, I don't think like necessarily like you said, you have Cinnamon Toast Crunch as like a post workout meal, which is a great carbohydrate because it's got sugar and it's got quick digesting carbs. I think having some you can have some flexibility as far as having a couple of the processed stuff, but I think on a general basis, eating more whole foods is going to end up in a better physique and better. It's going to help your brain like develop the right amount and not have to worry about brain fog throughout the day as well.
Yeah, I mean, moderation is key in anything. I think it's okay to have at least like one meal a day that maybe isn't like a whole food. Yeah. But I also think the like chemicals is kind of like a over talked about thing, because technically water, H2O, is a chemical. Yep. So it's like not necessarily these products that have like bigger chemical names on them are necessarily bad. Like they're just chemicals. Right. But the ones that have more like preservatives or shit like that, things like that are actually going to maybe be harmful to some degree, especially if you use in excess over a long period of time. Yep. But I'd say for like a general consensus for people that are just trying to get into bodybuilding, kind of learn the basics, yes, stick to as many whole foods as possible. Yep. Maybe one meal a day can be something of like not a perfect chicken rice.
Yeah, right.
I mean?
Yeah, yep.
But we can move on to meal prep tools and strategies.
Yeah.
What kind of different tools you use and incorporate to make meal prep easier, or maybe other tips and tricks for the viewers too.
Yeah. I think obviously like the essential tools you're gonna need, like you're gonna need to have a place to cook the food. You need to have a stovetop. You need to have a kitchen to cook in. But obviously, like on a more
You don't
small
just
level.
microwave your ground beef to cook it.
Well, yeah, I use microwave too, but
No,
like
I'm fucking with you. Like,
I know,
throwing in raw beef.
Yeah. You throw raw beef in the microwave.
Just 20 minutes. Just cook that
Oh
shit.
gosh. No. When it comes to like some of the more basic things, like you can buy at the store, like obviously you need a food scale. Another great one that you brought up earlier, a blender is a great one because, especially if you're going to be making a lot of shakes, and not just protein and water, protein and milk, but like adding in other things like peanut butter, honey, ice cubes, things like that. That's a great tool to have. What else would you say as far as tools?
Rice cooker.
Rice cooker, yeah,
Big
one.
time.
Yep.
If a lot of you guys, I know when I started, I was trying to cook rice over the countertop, and it just took for fucking ever.
Oh, for sure.
And it wouldn't last very long.
Yep.
Dude, a rice cooker, like you literally plug that shit in, pour it up with rice, pour in enough water to maybe cover like a half inch above the rice is what I kind of do. I don't even like measure.
Yeah.
That always works for me. And then you literally click like 2 buttons, cooks probably 4 days worth of rice for me in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Yeah, you can literally buy a rice cooker I think I bought mine at Target for less than $40.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another great tool actually I was thinking about when as you were talking about that is I just recently got a pressure cooker.
Oh yeah.
Huge when coming to cook up chicken because you can throw a chicken breast. It doesn't even have to be unthawed either. You can throw frozen chicken breast in a pressure cooker and literally have the chicken come out just like melt, like basically just melting as you like pull it apart. It's super sick.
You can do it in a rice cooker too.
Yeah, you in a rice cooker too as well. But that's a great tool to use as well. How exactly do you meal prep? Are you meal prepping each individual meal, or are you doing it like a certain way, or what's the way you do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I don't really have like a typical 9 to 5 anymore. So what I like to do is I meal prep all of my ingredients in mass. And then I will kind of throw them together as I want from there. But some days I'll kind of, like if it's going to be a busier day, I'll maybe meal prep them the day before just so that day goes smoother and I have to waste less time like preparing meals. But if you're someone that does like have a 9 to 5 or you're like in school or something like that, I definitely say preparing your meals ahead of time, at least the night before for the next day. Or you could do like 1 hour, 2 days a week to basically prep you for like 3 days worth or so. Or you could just do 1 day of the week to just meal prep all of your food for the week. Just throw your excess in the freezer and take it out like the night before.
Similar way I do it. I cook all my basic stuff. I'm cooking rice between 2 and 4 times a week just because of consuming it so much rice at this point in my off season. But when it comes to like the meats, I'm cooking everything up usually once a week. Could be once every 5 days depending on how long that lasts me, but putting it all in Ziploc bags as it cools down in the fridge. It's kind of similar to what you do. And then I'll prep the night before if I really need to. Otherwise, like if it's during the day, I'll just get like kind of one meal at a time as I go.
Understanding like when to use certain things like on the go too. Like sometimes I'll utilize canned foods sometimes, like canned pineapple. Then you don't have to worry about it staying cold. If you're traveling, canned chicken breast, canned tuna, using those things.
Great tools to use.
Rice, you could use rice cakes as a substitute. Learning how to like actually substitute macros is going to be a huge skill. Like if you just, say you have like chicken breast and rice in a meal plan and you're going to be traveling, or if you run out of it expectedly, but you do have rice cakes and protein powder at home, you can hit those same macros with those ingredients. You know what I mean? You don't have to like just skip the whole meal. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you just go like, again, your MyFitnessPal and just type in, like if your meal plan is, again, just like 100 grams of chicken with like 30 grams of protein, something like that, you can just go in your MyFitnessPal, see how many grams of protein powder you need to hit that same protein. Then just substitute out the ingredients. But you want to make sure that you're doing it with a similar ingredient macro profile. Like you're not going to sub out ground beef for chicken because ground beef has more fat, micronutrients, stuff like that, etc. Yeah, some other meal prep tools I like to use too is an air fryer. I actually don't have one right now, but it can be a pretty big game changer too.
Yeah. I've never used them, but I've seen other people use them, and
Pretty sick.
a couple of my buddies use them, and they're great. Yeah.
Yeah, really great for potatoes.
Yeah.
Any other like strategies you use in terms of success for meal prep?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Like honestly, a lot of it just comes down to like being prepared as a bodybuilder. Like that's the whole. When it comes to bodybuilding, like that's a big proponent of bodybuilding is like you're on time, you're on track with your meals. Like you're not missing a meal because you didn't prepare to bring it on a vacation with you, or because you're at a wedding, like you're not going to eat unplanned. Like
right.
That's a big thing for me. Is just like I am always making sure to plan ahead, and that kind of stuff. So like if I'm going somewhere like tomorrow, or we're going to be going somewhere, I'm packing all my meals tonight, all my meal containers. I don't think so that's kind of like what I guess comes down to like the last kind of thing for me is just like making sure I'm prepared about that kind of stuff. Other than that, I don't really have anything else.
Yeah.
I guess to go over as far as meal prep.
Yeah, I think the number one skill in being a good bodybuilder or really anything is just your ability to be prepared
And flexible.
Expecting if things do not go your way.
Yeah.
So if I'm like traveling somewhere, I usually always keep a secondary food scale in my trunk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a smart. Yeah.
Like one just always for my car, one just always for home. Or if you have a work job, I used to always keep a food scale at work just in case I needed it. Came in handy so many times.
Yep.
Or even just being prepared with protein sources if you're away from home. Like, say for example, even unexpected things. Like say you drop your meal prep off a bridge. You know what I mean? Now you can't eat your meal.
Yeah.
But like, I'll maybe sometimes just keep like 5 packets of 2 scoops of protein powder, like in Ziploc bags in my car. So then like, and keep a shaker bottle in there. So you just always have a source of protein. You know what I mean?
That's one thing I've done in the past as well. Yep.
So just like being prepared for circumstances like that. And then just being in the mentality of getting your meal in no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Or what your circumstance is. Like back in high school, I was in a health science academy, and we would do hospital tours for like 4 hours. And at the time, I was in prep, and I was not missing my meal timing. Like I wanted to be perfect with everything.
Yeah.
So this was like in the middle of winter, and so when we went to this hospital tour, I literally took my chicken and rice, stuffed it up my winter coat, and went into the hospital tour.
That's awesome.
And about like an hour in, I asked him if I could just run to the bathroom, and I fucking ate chicken rice and broccoli cold, shoved it in my face and like in the bathroom stall in 10 minutes, and then just went out and kept doing my tour.
That's awesome.
Just fucking no excuses.
Yeah, that's
you know
awesome.
What I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the mentality you got to have if you want to be like an actual
You actually want to put on
athlete.
size, yeah.
Yeah. Many times, or like just being willing to be looking like an oddball. Like I've taken meals to events where like no one else is just having a meal prep. I'm just there fucking eating a meal prep.
Yeah.
You know
No one else is eating at all.
Yeah,
and you're eating, exactly.
Or at like events too that you're surrounded by other food options that are tempting.
Yeah.
But you choose to eat your meal prep. Like if you are at a wedding and they've got like a bunch of food out there.
Or a birthday party or whatever the case might be.
You gotta have the discipline to say no. And have the self-love to eat what you're supposed to get you closer to your goals.
Do you want to touch base on seasonings at all?
And what?
Seasonings or condiments? Do you want to touch base on?
Seasonings, sure. Probably the best way to do it is cooking your beef raw and then seasoning it afterwards, like with your sodium. But if it is something that's like lower in sodium in the off season, like I'll do that. But I'll add like my main salt source after.
Yeah.
Pepper or herbs, you can always do those like right away. Again, if we're talking to more of like the beginner bodybuilder, I don't think that's necessarily something they really need to worry about.
Yeah. What would be like maybe 1 or 2 seasonings that you've used in the past, I guess for like the beginner bodybuilder who's getting into meal prep, if they're trying to like, just to give some examples. I know obviously you can look up this stuff on your own, but like, we're here to provide as much stuff for you guys as possible.
Honestly, my best advice is just try everything.
Yeah.
Try not to use stuff that's like high in calories, obviously. But just test what you like, test what you don't like. For me, I always liked my basics like salt, pepper, herbs, like Italian seasoning, something like that, basil. And I'm a big fan of smoked paprika.
Yeah, great
and
one.
anything really like Cajun.
Yep.
I like Cajun shit.
Yep.
If you go to Walmart, there's a Southwest Cajun one there. It's so fire. There's also a garlic Parmesan one that's really good.
Sweet.
But how about you?
Yeah, what I used for beef for the longest time. I mean, I use this. I didn't only change this up recently, so it's been a year and a half since I was with Nick. For beef and turkey, I was using my own homemade taco seasoning.
Oh yeah,
that's fire.
Taco seasoning.
Taco seasoning is awesome. That's a great one for bulky meals because you can just get it down so fast.
Yeah,
like, it's just something that tastes good. Most people are gonna
taste like a taco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Most people are gonna love that kind of stuff. I do like a fajita kind of pre-made one now. That's just easier for me. It saves me a little more time. As far as chicken goes, kind of just the basics: garlic, paprika, salt, pepper.
Yeah.
It's a great blend right there. And as far as sauces go, like unshaken, I've been using, like kind of more like the Cajun kind of sauces. You could also go on the side of like more of like an Asian kind of sauce.
I like marinating my chicken.
Yeah.
If I can do something that's like pretty low, 0 cal.
Yep.
Like I found this one really good teriyaki one that's pretty. I think it's like almost 0 cal.
Wow.
And then maybe like with some garlic, and maybe something else. But like letting it marinate overnight and cooking it, dude,
that's the way
fire.
to go for sure. Sweet.
So I think we're pretty good on nutrition. Moving into supplements, what are kind of like your basic go-tos in terms of supplements?
Yeah. Obviously the most basic supplement like is going to be protein powder, and that's going to be in your meal plan. That's just a kind of a non-negotiable, I would say.
Yeah.
Even getting into it, like even if you're a beginner, some people say like don't use protein powder as a beginner, but honestly, like if you're trying to get your protein value in, it's going to save you a lot of money rather than you spending all that money on meats. You can spend that on a protein powder that'll save you a little bit more money in the long run. And then creatine, like obviously creatine's a great one. Like any sort of omega-3s, so fish oil, krill oil. That's like those are great ones for joints and just keeping your heart healthy. Like that's just kind of an overall health supplement. And then lastly, I would say for its test boosting effects and keeping you calm, I would say either ashwagandha or magnesium. Probably magnesium first over ashwagandha.
Oh yeah, magnesium glycinate is a
great
essential.
Yeah.
Or it's an absolute essential.
Yeah.
I would say if I was running through my list, I would say same thing: protein powder, creatine, some kind of good multivitamin.
Yep.
I really like 2-a-day multivitamins. And anytime you have a multivitamin, you always want to make sure you eat it before you eat your first meal or after. You just want to make sure that you have it with your food.
Yep.
Because it's going to be more bioavailable, shuttled throughout your bloodstream to muscles when digested with food.
Yep.
So that's why I kind of like it, some kind of dose of that one time in the morning and then once at night.
Yep.
Just kind of keep it all streamlined.
Yep.
And again, krill oil, kind of like you said, fish oil, whatever. Selenium's really good too, that a lot of people are deficient in for antioxidant production. And nighttime GABA is a really good one. Yeah. Which is a neurotransmitter inhibitor that helps you kind of wind down before bed. Ashwagandha is great for cortisol control as well. Just make sure that you cycle that one in and out. Usually probably like 7 to 12, maybe even 14 weeks at a time. Yep. But really, like for the beginner, you don't need to go crazy. Yeah. Like when it comes really, really down to it, like if you're just starting on a budget, creatine, protein powder, and maybe a good multivitamin. Just start there. Yep. And then maybe increase it over time. Yep.
One thing I was going to touch base on is obviously as a bodybuilder, we're controlling variables. So the best way I've found to incorporate new supplements is, just try a new supplement out with the current stack that you're using. Try it out for 2 weeks. Write down some notes about it and kind of see how it affects your mental, physical. Just kind of write down that kind of stuff, how it makes you feel. And then kind of determine like the price to reward ratio.
I'm a big fan of berberine too.
Yeah, berberine's a good one.
Incorporating that one a lot more as well. Helping for blood sugar, fasted blood sugar control. It's really good for a lot of individuals. Yeah, that's pretty much the main things I wanted to cover with supplements.
Yeah,
really.
There's not really much else I would cover.
One thing I did want to throw in with supplements is like teas. I think teas are pretty underutilized in the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I actually have something else to go on to after you talk about that.
Yeah. So teas, I'd say the two best teas, in my opinion, to go with is gonna be something that's good for like digestion in the morning. So like I do smooth move tea in the morning, and then I do like a valerian, maybe with a chamomile at night. Valerian tea is going to be the most potent herb, I would say, for helping with sleep. Chamomile is going to be up there too. You can even get into like more nitty gritty stuff too in terms of supplements, like Epsom salt baths or candles, things like that you could utilize too for. We
can kind of touch base more on like recovery aspect of the next recovery
kind of moving into that anyway.
But yeah, last thing I was going to touch base on supplements. This kind of goes along with nutrition as well. But yeah, as you kind of get into further into an off season or further into a caloric surplus, and you're getting these huge amount of carbs put into your system and just this large amount of food. Obviously, like we said before, digestion is key. And so ever since that last gut protocol, I've been still adding in and staying with the morning gut supplement drink that I put together. I don't know if you do that as well, but it's you can kind of do a couple different versions of it. But I do aloe vera juice with the inner fillet, and then I do apple cider vinegar with the mother, glutamine, and then creatine, and then as well as lemon juice.
Yeah. Yeah, you could even get more just like basic like glutamine, lemon juice, aloe vera, or even just lemon juice, glutamine.
Yeah.
Glutamine is such an awesome supplement.
Yep.
It just kind of helps to restore the mucosal lining of your stomach.
Yep.
The stomach acid will kind of eat at that lining over time, which just cause like little micro cracks, more or less. It's not going to
causes stomach aches.
Yeah, or even like whenever you eat food, it can cause more, like for the foods to kind of like seep out of the crack to cause like more inflammation within your body. You can hold more water, which in turn can cause more free radicals to accumulate over time, which those free radicals, if build up in excess, can lead to cardiovascular disease, aging, autoimmune disorders, a lot of different things like that. So that's where making sure you have plenty of foods that are heavy in antioxidants too are really important. Like blueberries are a really great one. You'll see that in a lot of bodybuilders' diets. They're super high in antioxidants, so that's a really good one to have. You said you wanted to move into recovery modalities.
We can kind of start touching base on that now. Yeah.
So the pinnacle of recovery is going to be sleep.
Yeah.
Kind of like that magnesium glycinate supplement. That's going to be a really good one to have like an hour before bed to have time to go fully into effect to actually get the benefits while you sleep. Magnesium is actually an essential mineral that you need to achieve deep sleep. So that's why it's really good to have before bed. If you want like the ultimate fucking way to get sleep, I'm going to drop some sauce.
All right.
If you want the ultimate sleep routine, it seems maybe a little bit extra, but you can actually do a lot of it at once.
Yeah.
And it makes it extremely effective. So number one is you want to start this about an hour before you go to bed. I would recommend turning off all of your lights. Just use natural light like candles, or if you have LED lights, use red because they're the lowest in lumens for light. So it'll be the less interfering with your cortisol signaling levels. Because whenever you are open, like in the daylight, that's when cortisol is being stimulated to get you prepared for like just activity. It keeps you alert and awake. So the opposite to that is going to be melatonin that's produced in your body. So you want to have dark light so it has plenty of time to actually signal to your body it needs to produce melatonin that you need to go to bed.
Right.
Which is why being on your phone disrupts a lot of people's sleep and why you guys sleep like shit and don't get the actual benefits of sleep.
Yeah.
So making sure you don't use your phone at all within that last hour, minimum 30 minutes. Literally just 5 minutes of being on your phone before bed disrupts your sleep up to 30%, which is pretty wild.
It's pretty wild, yeah.
All right, so you're starting this an hour before bed. I would really recommend drawing up a hot bath with your lights down, maybe just a candle, incorporating some kind of like meditative sound. So you go on Spotify, play some kind of like meditation playlist is what I do. because the hurts of those will kind of signal to your brain to be more calm. And then while you're drying up this hot bath, I'd make sure that your room temperature is coming down to about like 65 degrees or so, nice and cool. Your body actually needs to drop about 1 degree in order to achieve deep sleep as well. So that's why it's really important to have that cool environment. And why whenever we're going into this hot bath, it's going to be super beneficial, because once we come out of that hot bath, that temperature drop is going to happen much more drastically. So when you're in this hot bath, before you get in there, I would take all of your sleep supplements. So they have an hour to go into effect, and this is going to be happening while you're doing all these parasympathetic activities to get you ready for bed. So then when you're chilling in your bed, in your bathtub, I would have some kind of Epsom salts in there. A lot of people don't know this too, but magnesium is actually best absorbed through your skin. So that's why it's really good to do before bed, which can also just help with muscle soreness, whatever. I'd have some kind of like chamomile candle in there. So that's going to sit in the air that you're getting from the fragrance to kind of help calm down as well. And then you could do something like breathing breath work while you're in the bathtub, or read a book, meditate, whatever. Do something that's parasympathetic while you're in the bath. And then once you come out, and I'd say about 30 minutes will pass by that period. Your last 30 minutes, I would just maybe stretch or continue meditating, whatever. And then I would really like to say read. I really like reading before bed. And then journal. Journal. And then by that point, dude, you should be fucking just sleeping like a baby.
Yeah. That's the way to go. Dude, I for the longest time I was taking a supplement with GABA as well as magnesium in it. And those two together they help. 2 hours before bed, and you do that same act, it's just gonna put you straight to bed, bro. And that's gonna be the biggest thing is optimizing sleep. That's gonna equal gains, bro, because that's you don't build muscle at the gym. You break down muscle at the gym. You have to recover for that. So a lot of people forget about that, and then sleep is then sacrificed. So that's a big one when it comes to sleep. What are some other recovery modalities that you use kind of throughout the week?
I really like the sauna. I like stretching in the sauna because it helps, I think, just increase the vasodilation while you're in there. And then it makes your muscles more relaxed, so when you stretch, you can get into deeper ranges of motion when you're stretching. Sometimes I use the hot tub every now and then. Sometimes I kind of like to stay out of there just because there's so much chlorine and I feel bacteria. But right after a nasty leg day, I feel like it goes pretty far.
Oh, dude, yeah.
It just feels great. Honestly, a lot of people don't need to overthink it. Recovery needs to just be whatever makes you chill the fuck out. You don't need to do 1,000 different things in order to recover. Something as simple as sitting on your couch and playing some video games can be super good for recovery. I don't know, smoke a doobie, play some video games, eat your meals, take a nap, just fucking chill. Don't overthink it. The biggest thing you don't want to do is I can't stand the active recovery day things. Rest day, so I'm going to go hike 6 miles. Nice. You just fucked up your entire recovery day.
Right, exactly. That's,
Which is cool to do every now and then because you need to enjoy your life. But people that are just cannot take rest are the people that don't grow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the other thing too. I mean, Dr. Mike Israel was talking about it on a podcast.
I
don't know if you listened to that one, but it was
cuddling your
they did a study. They did a lot of these more Eastern European countries used to have these training camps. I think it was back in the 80s and 90s where they would just try to put on the most muscles possible, and literally all you were doing was you were spending, you were getting the exact amount of time that you need to train in the gym, eat, blah blah blah, right? But the recovery was just they were just playing video games. They were just sitting down. There's no need for this 6-hour morning routine and doing all this stuff. Obviously, if you're running a business or if you're going to work and you're, working at a more stressful job, that's going to happen. But those recovery days are there for a reason. You don't need to be doing, like you said, 6 mile, hikes or runs or, trying to burn extra calories because you think you're losing fat, but actually aren't. You need to give your body time to recover, and sometimes it literally just comes down to just taking a chill pill. You know?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for sleep too is people need to optimize their circadian rhythms and keep their sleep and wake times consistent.
Yeah. I didn't even, I mean, dude, seriously, like that's been something I've had to learn for so long. I don't think I've gotten it kind of locked in until like this year, bro.
Mm-hmm. I still struggle with it sometimes. Especially like I get like locked in sometimes creating someone's program. I'm just like, fuck, I just want to finish this one.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you can just like try to wake up and make the first thing that you do, like for me personally, my morning routine is super fucking simple. I just wake up, go to the bathroom, 1 and 2, weigh myself, have some water, and then go outside and walk.
Yeah.
Because then you're having movement, which is, you know, helping your digestive system kind of wake up. It's helping your mind kind of wake up. It's getting sun in your eyes, which is signaling that cortisol, which is helping you set up for a good circadian rhythm so that when nighttime comes, that allows for like the melatonin to actually come into play.
And actually help you sleep better.
Right.
Yep.
So it's important to have that. And yeah, that's like the main stuff I would say with recovery. Even like that sleep breakdown I gave is probably extreme for most people. Yeah. That's kind of like...
Yeah, it's just kind of some free tips we're kind of just throwing out for...
That's kind of something I did a lot in prep, just because I wanted to be the best I possibly could be. Yep. But for most people, I would say just pick 1 to 2 things in the morning and night for a routine.
Yeah. You don't even overcomplicate that kind of stuff, because in the end, like, you're gonna end up making it's gonna hinder your results rather than,
like, for some people, morning meditate, nighttime read.
Yeah.
Done.
Literally, yeah. Well, yeah, that pretty much sums it up for recovery. I guess, so like now we've kind of talked about everything. Bodybuilding 101. Like, what would bodybuilding 101 a day in the life look like? If you could just kind of brief it down to me in like 3 to 5 minutes, what would that look like with applying all this knowledge that we just talked about?
Keep it simple, stupid. Sleep 8 hours. Train your balls off. Lift heavy and hard. Eat plenty of food to recover from, and enjoy your fucking life. Don't make your identity being a bodybuilder, because you are human and you're more than that. So you need to enjoy your social life too. So really, dude, bodybuilding is so simple. It's not easy, but it is very simple. You just need to fucking eat a lot of food, train hard, sleep, and enjoy life.
Yeah.
That's really about it.
Yeah. I guess, if I were to break it down, pretty similar to that. I guess, like, kind of just going over some of the topics, like we said before, like, you know, you're eating 4 to 5 meals a day. You're making sure that your morning routine's pretty simple, 1 to 2 steps. You're getting steps throughout the day to help promote digestion. Your meals are relatively whole foods. You're getting some sort of, I guess I would say, like, kind of just focusing on digestion. So making sure it's mostly whole foods. Like, obviously some processed foods in here or there. It's not gonna be in the end of the world. Making sure you're training hard, you're heavy, and like the frequency of your lifts, right? Like, focus on the muscles that you're trying to bring up, and then other than that, like, kind of getting more into the nighttime side of things. Like, again, 1 to 2 steps, journal.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing too is make sure that you're driving progress over time.
Yeah, progressive overload.
Because if you're lifting the same shit, eating the same shit over and over and over, and not like improving anything or adding in more food or anything like that, like, you're just going to be in the same spot. Yeah. And you're going to hit a plateau. Yeah. So you need to make sure that you are incorporating some kind of progressive overload to anything. Really, that's what bodybuilding is you create some kind of standard and then improve all the modalities of what you're currently working with over time. Yeah. And that goes down to everything too. Yeah. Like communication with your coach, understanding how your body works, how it responds, doing a lot of trial and error, seeing what works for you, and just taking all of the basics, like, recovery, sleep, meals, training, all of that shit, even in things like work or time management, financial freedom, like financial literacy. Like, if you want to be the best bodybuilder you can be, you have to improve all metrics of your life to be the best they can possibly be. Yeah. I mean, it's literally,
no one could have said it better, bro. That touched on pretty much everything, bro. Well, yeah, guys, that's pretty much how to become a bodybuilder. If you guys are just getting into it, if you're an intermediate or even an advanced lifter, I hope you guys got something out of this.
You can find us at Trist_Nelson on Instagram.
Or Will.Hardy1 on Instagram and Will.Hardy1 on YouTube.
Hell yeah, guys. Promote the podcast. Keep coming back for more. We'll have more value for you.
Awesome.
Peace.
Peace, guys.